In this presentation, we are examining the load response continuum. This is to give you a better understanding of how training resistance should be adjusted to achieve a desired outcome or the goals of the athletes or individuals. To optimize training outcomes, or simply getting the most out of the weights room, it is important to understand this principle and know how this can be applied to enable individuals to achieve the training goal. When we talked about what would be a good starting point for beginners, we discovered that the recommended program provided by the ACSM works pretty well. The 8 to 12 repetition max intensity provide all-round benefits that should see beginners improve in both muscular strength and muscular endurance. Beginners might also see some hypertrophy if training is maintained for a period of time. So after beginners have spent a couple of months of generalized training, there may be a desire to specialize, particularly focusing on hypertrophy, strength, or endurance. According to this continuum, if one wishes to optimize in strength, the load then needs to be increased to around 2 to 5 repetition maximum. Vice versa, the main characteristic of a muscular endurance program is high number of repetitions per set, and this is to attain high volume of work. So trainers should really be focusing on lifting or completing high number of repetitions, and this could be as high as 15 to 20 repetitions. So let's now have a closer look at what training programs for different training outcomes may look like. We'll be focusing on muscular endurance, muscular hypertrophy, and muscular strength. In an endurance program, the aim of an endurance training session is to enhance the muscle's ability to withstand fatigue. And this is due to improvement in various metabolic efficiencies within the muscle fibers. It is characterized by high volume of work, and generally you see it as a high number of repetition per set. Because the repetition is high, intensity will have to be low to moderate. So we're looking at about 60 to 70% of 1 RM. Due to the high volume of each exercise, you may actually only do a few exercises per muscle group, in fact, few exercises per training session. As high as 15 to 20 reps has been, 15 to 20 reps rather, has been recommended, but in the real world, you can do as high as 20, 30, 40 repetitions per set per exercise. When this type of training, while this type of training will generally generate very little to nil strength gain, noticeable increase in strength may occur in beginners during the early stage of training. And this because they are going from not doing very much resistance training work to actually doing something, and the muscle will adapt, and you'll actually see some strength improvement as well. Next is hypertrophic development. To accumulate or to stimulate hypertrophy, essentially we need to see a little bit of muscle fatigue and perhaps some level of damage within the muscle as well. Hypertrophic programs is characterized by high volume of work, but this is not achieved through high number of repetitions per set, but rather you do fewer repetitions, but you do a higher number of sets. And this is because the intensity required has to be reasonably high. The reason for this is that type 2 fibers have got greater capacity to hypertrophize, and so to maximize a hypertrophic gain, you really need to engage these muscles early and really try to fatigue them. Lifting at lower intensity generally would not engage these fibers as much. So the characteristic of a hypertrophy program is high volume, but through increased number of sets, while keeping repetitions to fairly moderate. Another strategy you may engage in to increase volume is to perform many exercises per muscle group. So an example could be 3 to 4 sets of 6 to 12 repetitions per exercise. Then you do 3 to 4 exercises per muscle group to increase that volume. Here's an example of a training program from a footballer, or example hypertrophy program really for perhaps a first-year footballer who needs to gain a little bit of size to be able to contest in the field more strongly. As you can see here, the repetition early in the program, only one set of 15 repetitions, so that 15 rep is almost more on the endurance side, but it also elicits some level of hypertrophy. And as the week progresses, number of sets increases to 3. You can also see as the week goes on, the number of exercises also increase. For the lower limb, 3 exercises: parallel squat, hamstring curls, and then the step up, all of which will really try to fatigue these muscles to stimulate growth. For strength, we're moving on to low volumes level of work, and it depends on which strength coach you talk to. These can vary to a degree, but in general we're talking moderate to low volume of work. And because the volume is low, intensity gets ramped up and it has to be quite high. Eccentric work can be quite handy in this phase of training, so long as, again, intensity is near maximum level. Because of the intensity, you do need quite a solid recovery time. And now, while the exact or how much rest you need is subject to debate, generally you want at least 1.5 to 2 minutes per set of exercise at near maximal intensity. So a program might look a little bit like this: 3 to 5 sets of only 3 to 6 repetition per exercise, and only engaging in maybe 2 to 3 exercises per muscle group, and even then that's probably on the large sides. It's not uncommon when athletes are in the pure strength phase of their training, you only have 3 or 4 exercises to do within the session, but each of those are performed at maximum intensity. Now, the reason why intensity needs to be really high is because there are muscle fibers, particularly those type 2B, that will not be engaged until you contract at very close to maximum intensity. So this graph illustrates the different motor units that get engaged at different contraction intensity. SO stands for slow oxidative motor units, FOG fast oxidative glycolytic. So these are pretty much the type 2A. Then you've got the fast glycolytic fibers, which is in the solid large circle. As you can see, some of the fast glycolytics, so these are essentially the 2B, lay pretty dormant. And these are the ones that you need to exercise and strengthen and train if you want to maximize your strength. So it's really important that if you want to be strong, you need to train at maximal intensity. So in summary, the training load recommended by the American College of Sport Medicine is suitable for beginners and will deliver a fairly all-round development for individuals. So you get a little bit of strength and a little bit of endurance at the same time. This development, however, will plateau fairly quickly, and at some point the individual may choose to specialize and optimize strength development or hypertrophy development or endurance development. Load must be adjusted accordingly, and the load response continuum can give you a pretty good guide to achieve whatever goal the individual may set. Thanks again for listening.